Maybe he has gotten threatening messages, or maybe he sent them to himself so he can play the victim. Colton Underwood, the unbearable player on the Traitors, who we finally got rid of, did finally speak out. Well, spoke about the controversy and the reaction to him on the show over this past season. So I wanted to make a quick video about why his response is bullshit, as to be expected, and just more of the same from this guy, like we have been talking about for weeks now, and a lot of you in the comments agreeing how Colton made this season pretty unbearable, and he did. Although editing and production has a lot to do with it too. His response was what his response always is to Backlash Online. And I also want to say this, he waited until he could have a PR puff piece about him to, finally respond. Variety gave him the platform to be a PR, basically, and not really give real answers. And as usual, never take accountability or responsibility for his past actions. Everyone else is the problem. He's the victim. Everyone else is the problem. Anyway, he was proud about how he played, talking about the actual game. But, the question was about the toxicity in the fandom during this season. Even though the toxicity was really only about him and Michael Rappaport, like, let's be honest. In these answers that Colton gives, he's acting like he wanted protection for the whole cast, when really it's been only those two that have been getting the most flack. Anyway, his response to the question about the experience of the backlash against him is, first and foremost, I want to say I am proud of Peacock for standing up for the cast, the people, the human beings who are putting a show on for these fans. I think that's what makes Traitors so successful, is all the casts who are entering the castle have their own fans, and they have their own groups that are rooting for them and cheering for them. So right off the bat here, he is basically saying that he did contact Peacock, as we all suspected a couple weeks ago when we talked about them putting out a statement. It was Colton contacting them to put out a statement to protect the cast, but really to protect him. He's the one that was getting it all. He talked about a few lines that were sent to him that were bad, or that things brought up that are lacking context. He's saying it was something he wasn't fully prepared to deal with 6 years later at this stage of my life, but I do understand that there are new fans, people meeting me for the first time. There are also people who watched my Bachelor season 6 years ago and then forgot about me, and then all of a sudden this is jarring. Who is this dude? A lot of life has happened for me in 6 years, a lot of growth, a lot of self-work, and I'm in such a different place. You see, it's easy for him to say that, but this is the problem with being in the public eye, is that when you are in the public eye and you're on another reality show, and then after that reality show, you terrorize someone from the same cast, and then you want to keep being on reality television and never truly address that incident, how can you expect anything other than constant backlash? That is what confuses me the most. The next question was, you're not new to receiving backlash online, but did it feel different this time with people bringing up the restraining order? How bad has it been? Colton's response was, I focus on the positive, but you know me well, and I'm going to shoot you very straight. An example of a message that I had to send to Peacock, once again confirming that he was the person that contacted Peacock to put out a statement to try and make the fans be nicer. He said, after the Michael Rappaport comment, somebody told me to stick a gun up my ass and pull the trigger. And then he talked about how people call him the F word because he's gay. I mean, this response is him again using his sexuality as a shield and as a weapon. Something he did during the game, something he does in his real life. It's his constant go-to. And I feel like this is it again. My whole problem with Colton response to all of this is to blame mean comments online and blame harassment. That's why people don't like him in the first place. He was threatening his past castmate, texting her threats, anonymous threats. This is the same man that texted anonymous threats to himself to make it look like he was getting those threats too, so he wasn't found out being the one threatening his ex from The Bachelor. How do we know he's not making these threats up? How do we know that he is not sending these threats to himself to, again, look like a victim? And I'm sure there's been a lot of hateful things said about him. And people do say the most ridiculous things. Social media is a cesspool. We talk about this with Love Island fans all of the time. But Colton is also the boy who cried wolf. And until he takes responsibility for his past actions, people are going to always think of him as the same person 6 years ago and think of him now as the person that tries to use his sexuality as a shield from those past actions that he never truly took responsibility for. He just came out as gay and tried to move on from them. So yeah, he went on to say he doesn't like the comments about his husband or referencing his child. He's saying that's not okay, that's too far. And I just have the tiniest violin for this guy, because not only has this guy truly sent threatening texts to a person in the past, but he was following that person, stalking that person. If you really go look into Colton's history, he was identified as being in the alley of Cassie's parents' house one time at 2 a.m. He had a tracker on her car. He went not just with threats, but with some actions too. And I agree at many times when I think people go too far on social media. But we also, as a society, need to start to take actions over words. I mean, Colton's actions are far worse than any words that have been said against him that I've seen. But maybe he has gotten threatening messages, or maybe he sent them to himself so he can play the victim. Either way, I'm glad he is gone from the season. Not that the season's going to get any better, because it is a boring, bad season altogether. We can maybe look forward to the reunion, but do I really think that Colton is going to address it in a different way than he addressed it in this interview? Do I think Andy is even going to be able to bring it up, or will Peacock try to protect him from it? This is the stupidest thing about it, is that if Colton would just deal with what people don't like him for head on, and talk about that bad time in his life again, but it was a bad time in his life because of his own actions. But he wants to avoid it. He wants to play the victim. He wants to use his sexuality as a shield. It's the same thing every single time. And people are going to keep coming for him because he won't just address the real issue in the first place. And the real issue is himself. He harassed someone on a reality show in the past, but he always wants to pop up on new reality shows. It's sick, and I don't like it, and I don't know why these shows keep casting him. But by casting Colton on this season of The Traitors, they gave us their worst season of The Traitors US. And I do think it damaged the franchise, and I do think it is the reason why they decided to finally have some real people in the next season, because casting these celebrities might be starting to not work. And yeah, I know this season, the season 4 premiere had a bigger audience than the season 3 premiere, but I haven't seen the show be able to keep up with the same viewing as season 3. I haven't seen anything in the news since the premiere week that says the ratings overall this season are better than season 3. Just the first 3 episodes that dropped.